So hi everybody and welcome back. This is a C++ tutorial series for absolute beginners. This is video 166, and in this video we are talking about delegating constructors. But before we talk about delegating constructors, one note here: I had today a little bit microphone problems, so I updated the software and I hope it works now. And if it's not working and you have problems with the sound, write it in the description below. I will try to fix it. So let's continue now with the topic for today, which is delegating constructors. And delegating constructors is just a call of a constructor, but the special case is we are calling in from a constructor. So what I mean with that is, if you have here already a constructor and you have here another constructor, you can this already existing constructor call from this constructor. And how you do this we are learning in this video. It's very simple. When you can see it, you are just calling it in the initializer list, and that is very important that you are calling it exactly here, because there is also a wrong call which you can make, and I will try to demonstrate you the wrong way to call it, which is using the constructor's body. And why this is wrong, I try to demonstrate it. I don't know if it's absolute good, but let's see. So first of all, what you can see here is again I have again here my big house class. I simplified it a little bit so it's a little bit more readable, and it's again in my namespace house. And here we can see I have only two public variables, which is my house name with a default value and a house number with a default value. And I have just here a default constructor. How we know it's a default constructor? Because we have here the same name and we have here no parameters in it. And I use here the body. Normally, if you are not using this body, you would use here the equal default sign to make it more efficient. So with that said, I want call this default constructor from another constructor, which means I need another constructor. I have to define another constructor. Let's do this. Let's copy this default constructor here. And I want call now this default constructor from this constructor, but we can't use here the exact signature, which means I have to change it a little bit. And I want provide here a string which will be set. I want set my name here, my house name, for example. That's why I call it here house name param, which means when I create a variable, I will provide this as an argument. And when I provide this as an argument, then I can use this. But in this case, it's not so important because I just want call this one here, which means I delete this one here, because this one here is not anymore the default constructor. This one is now just calling the default constructor here on top, which means I just use big house and then call it. It's similar like a function, but careful, it is not a function, but it's similar like a function. Call, it looks similar, it looks same, but we have already here a green scribble below this name, and you can see we have already some warning. Don't try to declare a local variable with no name. But the interesting part is this is still working anyhow. I say anyhow because it's not really working, but I show you what I mean with that. So first of all, let's create a variable. A variable means we are using this class as our type, which means first of all, watch where your class is. In my case, this class is in the namespace house, so I have to use this namespace as well, which is called house. And then I can call here this big house. You can see it. This is my class, and this one becomes our type now of the variable which we are going to declare. And this variable name is coder's house. Let's call it coder's house. And now to use, I have here two different constructors. I have to choose which one I want to use, and for this demonstration, of course, I want to use this one because I want to show you how to call a constructor within a body, which is a bad way. And yeah, but for that I have to provide also here, of course, a parameter, because if I use it without parameter, I would use the default constructor, which I don't want in this case, and I provide a name, which is the house name, which I want initialized here. It should be called, yes, it's Coder's house. Coder's house is okay. So this is Coder's house and all fine. And we can test now. Because this one, when we compare this one to this one, it's similar. You see, we learned that we can initialize value as well as in the body. That's possible. So careful about this. But using the constructor call here, that is not. It's possible, but you should not use it, and you will see in a moment why. So first of all, let's start. And we see, hey, it worked. No errors. That is good. At least we think so. It is good, and it's in real it is not good. And careful about this kind of tests, because some tests look it works all fine. You are happy, and then you are using it. But the problem here is, this was only one case where it works, but there are some other cases which will not work. And these cases I want to demonstrate you now. And to demonstrate this one where it's not working is when we use and when we try to initialize as well values. Because here I don't try to initialize values. I just called this one. This one is calling this one just like we expected, and all worked fine. And now I try to initialize values, and to try initialize values, I have already prepared here code so I don't waste too much time with typing. That's why I'm using this one here and explain it just. So, and it's not a big, it's not very difficult. It is just, the only difference is that I have now values, and let me explain you this fast here as well. So what I'm doing here, first of all, I have again two constructors. We can see we have the class name here, and when you see all time the class name here in the code, it is all time the one of the constructors, because you can see we have here many different kind of constructors. And then you can see I have parameters, two parameters here, one parameter here. And interesting is here, the second line is just an initializer, which we learned. We can go to the next line. I could go here even there to make it a little bit more visible. A little bit more readable, so that it's easier to read. So here we initialize. I initialize here the house number, and here the house name, which I get from this parameters here. And when you provide the argument here later, when you create a variable. So this one is the constructor which I will call from another place, which is this one here. This is the first constructor. Here I will create my variable. My variable will call this constructor, which has only one parameter. And you can see I have uncommented this one, because this one is the right way to do, and this one here, what you see, is the wrong way to do. And yeah, what I do else is I have a body where I just print out the member variable. So there is nothing difficult. It's just a print out. So when you are entering this body here, please print out what's right now the house name, or what's right now the house number. So it's very easy. It looks very difficult, but it's really easy what I have here. And so we can test this. So again, I have here my house, big house type. This is my type again. Here's my variable name. Of course, I have to choose here the right constructor. I want to choose this one because this one is calling this constructor, and I want to demonstrate you this one. So I have to find again a variable name with a string type. Okay, I have it. This is perfect. So this will work. And we can start and see what happens. And when we start it, we have here some values. So let's see what's printing out. So I start with this value here. It jumps here to this constructor, which we expected. It's perfect. So far, so good. Then it is calling in the first line the other constructor, which is here on top. This is okay. that we expected to. We take here the para, we call this one. Now we have here default value of 66 with this parameter here, which is probably coder's house. And we are entering this here, and here we have now using this argument which we have provided here, which means we have here house number is 66, we have coder's house, also very nice, and then we are initializing here these values, and then when we see what happens next is we're entering this body, all fine, perfect. And then here it print out, I'm the default constructor. Yes, absolutely expected, no problem. House name is coder's house, also expected, right? We give here the parameter, and then we give here the parameter, and it initialized here, perfect. And here I print out the house number, which is 66, also very nice. But then it jumps back to my constructor because it finished now this line here, right? So all thing is initialized, right? We saw it, coder's house and 68. What happens now is it's execute this line here, and the house name is what? Why is the house name here? We have already initialized it to coder's house, and I'm now here, and anyhow it is house anyhow. I don't know how, but it is house again, and my house number is anyhow back to 5, even though I have called this one and this one initialized these values. So you can see this is not right. And this was only on the fly created demonstration, so this is not in depth demonstration. In depth demonstration would be more like with compiler probably, because it's a little bit complicated what happens here. But you can see, and as a starter, what you know is never call it in the body, but here the info, you can of course initialize things here in the body, that's okay, but constructor, no, you can't call it. So this is the first thing what we learn. You can't call a other constructor in the body, but if I want initialize values here, that would be possible. Then let's go to the next place. But of course initialize the values also not on the body, because I don't know, perhaps they changed something and this way is the better way with this initializer here, because this is special made for this one. So use all time this initializer. Also try not to initialize here in the body. Anyway, we are continuing, and now we are, oops, why I deleted this one. And now we are making it right, which means normally you would delete this line I commented just out, and you can see this line here I'm placing now here in the initializer, and that is allowed. So we start with an initializer, which is the colon here, and normally we would now initialize here members or something like that, or nothing, depends on what you like. But here we are calling this other constructor, all right, and here this is just these parameters, so I give the parameter. So here of course I must match the constructor which I call, and this constructor here has a int and a string, so that's why I need here arguments with a int and argument which is a string, and this one will be replaced with this one here. So this is okay here. So this one is the right way, and this one is also this line here, what they say you should do. You should initialize a constructor here, but there is a little bit more to it. And what I mean with a little bit more, when you are using this kind of call, a constructor call, you can't do a comma separated member initializer here on this line anymore, which means if you try to use this house param here, for example, to initialize this house at this line, while you have already called a constructor, this is not no more allowed. For example, I want initialize this house variable here, house name. Let's make this house name. Here is it, and I want initialize it with this house name param, which I get from the caller, which is the variable when I created here the variable. All right, I paste it, And you can see, and let's make it a little bit more readable. We go to the next line, which is allowed. You can see I make this all time to make it a little bit more compact. So here we have already a complaint, and this complaint is a delegating constructor. A delegating constructor means you are calling a constructor. So all time when you read a delegating constructor, it's a calling constructor, cannot be have other member initializer, which means we are not allowed to use this anymore. And that is bad. We normally, like I said, you can see I get here here an argument, and I want to initialize this one. So you are not initialized at this point, but you can initialize this argument in the next constructor only, but only if you are not calling here another constructor. It is possible that you call here another constructor, like a big house if you have here another. But if you do this, you are not allowed to construct it there as well. But if you are not calling another constructor, then you can initialize it just normal, and you can see here I have here no error, so I'm allowed to do this. So this is the right way to do, and of course we have to test this again, right? So let's start and test this one as well and see if we expect our result. And let's look this. It looks much better. So what happens here? Let's follow this one as well fast this time. Here I create a variable with my argument coder's house, which will call which constructor? The one with the string, because this is a string. All right, and then we have here this initializer here, right? And the initializer said, okay, we have now to jump first to this place here, which means we are not executing this one here. We are executing first this one here. So the calling the constructor here with the argument 66, which is this one, and the house name, which I have provided from here, which is coder's house, and here. And this one will be initialized then here. This takes here in it and initialize it here on top. You can see how it goes from there. So it takes this one here and this one here. All right, it is initialized at this point here. And now I make these calls in my body. So the first body I say, I'm the default constructor. Yes, you are. Then house name is coder's house. Yes, I have initialized it with the coder's house. From here, which I get house name param, which is a string. From here, I have made it. Then the next one is house number. Yes, the house number I get from here. I get the 61. I initialized it. Perfect. And this body is finished, which means at this point it jumps back here after this one. It jumps back to this one. So first this executes the other constructor, which is calling, then it goes back, and now it executes this one. And here house name, yes, is coder's house, and house number, yes, it's indeed 66. And you see the example before where I called it here. Let's make it fast wrong again. This was wrong, right? Don't make this. So when I make this one again, and I uncomment this one here, you can see here again, I start this. Oops, let me start this one more time. So you can see here the values are not right. All right, so, and with that said, I hope you learned that you have to use the initializer for constructor calls, which are called delegating constructors, because you are calling other constructors and you can't use initializer there, member initializer there. So I hope you understand all things. And with that said, if you have any question, any complaints, or any tips and tricks like all time, write it in the comments. See you in the next video. Bye, good luck, and like all time, don't give up and have fun.